Hey, this is Jacob and I've just reinstalled my Windows, so I thought this is a perfect opportunity to show you how I do my Garry's Mod custom content Hammer editor setup. So first of all, obviously you would have to install Garry's Mod, run it once, and then to get the source SDK, just go to your Garry's Mod folder, then bin, and in here you will find hammer.exe. Just go ahead and make a shortcut to the desktop and run it. This tutorial is kind of aimed at people that have already worked with Source SDK, but I'm going to include the basics anyways. So what you want to do from here is just go to New and check if everything's working correctly. Then go to Tools and Options. The first page should be all right, and then in general I like to enable the autosave and put it down to 5 minutes. And since I'm using Google Drive, I also already have a autosave folder in there. Then go over to the 2D view, and here you can select the default to 15-degree rotations, which just makes it so objects rotate around 15 degrees every time you move your mouse. And then also allow key nudge selection. This is super handy as you can move objects with your arrow keys. And then to make Hammer run way better, just untick this little box here for draw vertices. This will not show the little dots at the corners of brushes, but for some reason this makes the performance super bad. Then go over to 3D views, and I like to push everything to the max. In fact, this is still not enough for my liking, as some massive maps tend to fade out in the distance. So just click OK and close Hammer. In order to fix this, you can go to Reg Edit and just go to Current User, Software, Valve, Hammer, 3D views, and in here the back plane, you can change that to, I don't know, it's 4 bytes, so let's just change it to this, which amounts to, well, this number. And also the model distance you can change as well. So this will make it so your map will not fade out in the distance anymore. Just make sure to, whenever you go back to the 3D view options, to not touch anything. Okay, that was pretty basic, and now for the interesting bit is if you want to create anything with custom content, which I'm assuming you want to do. Most people just drag and drop everything into their Garry's Mod folder, which is totally not the way you should be doing it. Instead, you should be using a little file called mount config, which you can find in your Garry's Mod config, and there's a mount config here. Just open that up. And in here, you can specify whatever folder you want. So for example, for me, I've got in Google Drive, I've got a couple folders that do have custom content in them. For example, this Star Wars here has all my custom assets. So you just want to go ahead and copy this path here and just create a new line. You can call it whatever you want and just paste your path here. I'm going to do the same for all my other stuff. So I got Star Wars, Star Trek, and also Lord Trilobite was kind enough to share his content with me. So I can mount this as well. Okay, if you now go back into Hammer Editor, you will find that it's looking in those folders for custom content. And in fact, when you open up a map and place, for example, a prop, you will find that all the custom assets are in there as well. So there's my Star Trek folder, there's my Star Wars folder, and also the Trilobyte stuff is all in there as well. Okay, now once you've set this up, it's super easy for other people to share content as well. For example, I'm using this method to work with someone together, and whenever I'm making changes to whatever content I'm working on, this will automatically be synced up with my Google Drive, and then the other person on the other end, or me with a different computer, it will automatically sync to this folder as well. And if that person on the other end also is using this mount config, it will automatically move everything to their Garry's mod. So you can use it in Hammer Editor, or it's also directly updated in your Garry's mod, which is super cool. Now, if you want to create custom models, you also want to do some changes to your crowbar setup. Firstly, you want to make sure that the library path is correct, and then under compile, instead of having the games models folder, you just want to select work folder and specify the mount folder that you're currently working in. So then what it's doing, it will create that model in your Garry's mod, but then afterwards it's moving it to that folder you specified and removes the old temporary files in your Garry's mod. This has the benefit that you can just run Garry's mod without all that custom content by just commenting out this a few lines here. So when you put 2 slashes here, that will mean that this content is no longer in Garry's mod, and you can test your maps, for example, if everything's included. Now for the last part, which is compiling a map, I like to use Valve batch compile tool. So I went ahead and downloaded that tool here. You can find it pretty easily on the internet. And I'm just going to copy that over to, let me just delete that and do it all over again, to this folder here. And now whatever you do, do not open it. There's some weird bugs with this tool, especially when you're running your Steam not from the default install path. I don't know what's going on there, but the fix is to create a new text document and call it sdk-paths.pro. Super important to make sure all the capital letters are correct. And then in here, again, it's super important to don't put any additional spaces. So I'm just going to toggle this little helper tool, and then you want to put sdk path, sorry, not all caps. And now go back to your Garry's mod install. Just here and browse to your bin folder. Just copy this and paste it in here. Then you want to put game path. Go back to your Garry's mod folder, go to Garry's mod, copy this, paste it, then project path, paste the same, engine type, and just put in CSS, all caps, game type, Garry's mod, space, and then map file, and then 2 empty lines. This is important to have 2 empty lines, so just make sure everything's correct. Project, for example, I have a small letter here, this is wrong. Engine type, game type, And after this is done, just save that file here. And now if everything went according to plan, you should be able to open this up and it should be working. So do not change anything in here. Don't touch any of this, otherwise it will break again. And then in here, what you want to do is I like to calculate the lighting in HDR, sometimes even without the low dynamic range. And then you can open up with right click this advanced compile options panel. Enable stop processing if leak detected. Go over to VVis, don't touch anything here. And in VRAD, you want to select these options here. This will make it so your map's lighting looks way better. Then you can select any map. For example, I'm going to just select my latest project and then just click final. And it will start compiling, and this will, looks like I didn't mount my stuff correctly, but doesn't matter. It should be working all fine and dandy. So just close that, and this is how I set up my environment to safely and cleanly create maps for Garry's Mod. I hope this has helped you in some way. Please, if you have any basic questions, don't try and ask me about it. As I said, this is sort of like a tutorial for people that already know what they're doing. I'm sure you can find help with the already existing tutorials from Top Hat Waffle or 3 Clicks Philip.